Scarlett Miller sat on the edge of the bed, her bare feet touching the cold wooden floor of her elegant apartment in the heart of Barcelona. The silence of dawn filled the air, broken only by the faint hum of the heating system. In her mind, a storm of thoughts swirled ceaselessly. At 60 years old, she was a woman marked by many professional triumphs, but the personal void had never left her. As an architect, Scarlett had gained considerable respect. Her projects, a unique blend of Spanish tradition and modernity, had conquered diverse places, from the Gothic quarter of Barcelona to the skyscrapers of New York. However, professional success did not fill the emptiness she felt. Her mind often drifted back to a memory from years ago, a fortune teller who, with an air of mystery and an intense gaze, had told her she would have a child in her third marriage. A child, the woman had said. At that moment, Scarlett was young and full of dreams, and the promise of a large family seemed inevitable, a line of her life drawn by the cards of destiny. Now, at 60, with 2 failed marriages and no children, that prediction felt more like a cruel mockery of fate than a true vision of the future. Look, what shocking turn will fate take next? Edward Garcia, her husband, a famous Argentine writer, appeared in the bathroom doorway with his imposing presence. Despite being 55, Edward had a serious expression and eyes filled with a calm that contrasted with Scarlett's internal turmoil. "Are you ready?" he asked, his soft voice laden with a concern he tried to conceal. Edward knew how important this moment was for her. Scarlett nodded, trying to appear more serene than she felt. "I've been ready for a long time," she replied, forcing a smile that Edward knew all too well, the one she wore when trying to hide her fear. The house they shared in Barcelona was a tranquil refuge, a space they had built together with love and mutual respect. The walls were adorned with memories of their travels, photos of old adventures and professional successes they had accumulated over the years. But there was an empty corner, a space in their lives that had yet to be filled, and today was the day they hoped that emptiness would begin to fade. As they drove to the hospital, silence filled the car. Scarlett looked out the window, the streets of Barcelona passing quickly, a reflection of the whirlwind of thoughts flooding her mind. She remembered her childhood, the fortune teller's voice echoing in her ears as if it were yesterday, "You will have a child in your third marriage." She had laughed then, a girl too young to understand what those words would mean someday. "Why am I thinking about that today?" she wondered. Edward broke the silence. "I remember when you told me about the fortune teller many years ago. I always thought it was nonsense until now." Scarlett turned to look at him, surprised by the coincidence of their thoughts. "I never told you, but that prophecy has been like a shadow over me. I don't know if I've lived my life trying to fulfill it or trying to escape from it," Scarlett admitted, her voice slightly breaking. Edward took her hand and squeezed it gently. "It doesn't matter why, Scarlett. We're here now. The important thing is that we both want this." The hospital was cold and clinical, but the soft lights and neutral colors of the private clinic provided a sense of serenity that Scarlett appreciated at that moment. The nurse who greeted them with a warm and professional smile indicated that Dr. Evans would see them shortly. Scarlett felt a pang of nerves as they entered the waiting room. The posters on the walls displayed images of newborns, happy families, and pregnant women. Edward sat beside her, and she felt his warm hand over hers, their fingers intertwining. "Everything is going to be okay, right?" Scarlett asked, almost like a child seeking comfort. "We've been through so much to get here. We didn't come this far to give up now," Edward replied, trying to infuse his voice with the confidence he knew Scarlett needed. The consultation room door opened, and Dr. Evans, a woman in her 40s with a kind and professional expression, invited them in. "Mrs. Miller, Mr. Garcia, welcome. Are you ready for the next step?" she asked as she indicated for them to take a seat. Scarlett nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "We are, Doctor. We've talked about this for a long time. We're ready." Dr. Evans began to explain the procedure to them, the steps to follow, the risks, and the chances of success. Although Scarlett had heard all of this before, somehow hearing the explanation again made everything feel more real, more imminent. Scarlett, your age and the time the eggs have been frozen decreased the chances of success, but they are not zero. We have had similar cases with positive outcomes, the doctor assured her, eyes searching Scarlett's, offering silent support. I don't need you to assure me that everything will go perfectly, Scarlett said. Edward squeezed Scarlett's hand once more, and she felt comforted by his unwavering support. The couple had been through so much together, but this was different. This was the fulfillment of a dream they both shared, a desire that went beyond words and anchored itself deep in their hearts. That afternoon, on the way home, the atmosphere in the car was different. The weight of uncertainty had been replaced by a determined calm. The reality of the procedure, of what they were about to attempt, had begun to settle in for both of them. What if it doesn't work? Scarlett suddenly asked, breaking the silence. It was a question they had both avoided, a dark thought they didn't want to face. If it doesn't work, we move on, Edward replied firmly. We won't let this define us, Scarlett. We won't let a failed possibility ruin what we've already built. Scarlett looked at Edward, and for the first time in a long time, she felt genuine peace. She knew that this man, her third husband, was her partner in every sense, her companion, her friend, her confidant. Thank you, she whispered, her voice nearly choked with emotion. Why? Edward asked, a faint smile on his face. For not letting me give up on my dream, for being here with me. Edward didn't respond. He just smiled and continued driving, his thoughts immersed in the days to come, in the hope they both held tightly. They knew the road wouldn't be easy, but they also knew it was a path they were willing to walk together, step by step, no matter the difficulties. When they arrived home, Scarlett slowly climbed the stairs to the bedroom, feeling each step like a meditation. She opened the wardrobe door and took out a small wooden box she had kept for years. Inside, there was a yellowed photo of her as a young woman, her eyes filled with hope and a hint of naivety. I still have that dream, she murmured, looking at the image. Edward appeared in the bedroom doorway, watching her in silence. And I'll be here to see it come true, he said firmly, stepping in and hugging her from behind. Scarlett closed her eyes, allowing herself for a moment to dream, to be carried away by the idea of what could be. She felt a mix of fear and hope, and she knew that no matter the outcome, she was ready for whatever came next. Together or apart, they would face whatever the future held for them with the same strength and determination that had always defined their lives. Edward sat at his desk, the glow of the computer screen illuminating his face in the dim study. Outside, the night stretched like a dark canvas, dotted with the lights of the city that never sleeps. There was something in the nighttime silence that had always inspired Edward to write, but tonight was different. There was a tension in the air, a contained energy that made him feel restless yet strangely alive. Scarlett was asleep in the next room, exhausted after another session of hormonal treatments. Edward had been watching her more than usual lately, studying every line of her face, every movement, as if searching for something he knew he couldn't fully understand. What she was going through, he wanted to be there for her in the only way he knew, by writing. He opened a new document on the computer and began to type. At first, the words came slowly, like drops of water barely falling from a faucet, writing about the weight, about the uncertainty of becoming a father for the first time at his age was not easy. How could he translate into words the complex mix of emotions that assaulted him day after day, the excitement, the anxiety, the fear of the unknown? It was like walking a tightrope over an abyss, not knowing if the next step would be firm or a plunge into darkness. The weight is a form of love, Edward wrote, his mind exploring the idea. Every second that passes, every minute that drags on with unbearable slowness, is a testament to the love I already feel for that life that does not yet exist. He paused, reading what he had written. It felt true but also incomplete. there was more. Relief he had felt for a moment was replaced by a deeper, darker fear. He realized he had prayed for the miracle of having their child, but now he needed another miracle, that Scarlett would survive. "Can I see her?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We will let you know as soon as you can go in," the doctor replied. "But for now, we need you to wait a little longer." Edward nodded, though every fiber of his being wanted to run to her, to be by her side. He leaned against the wall, staring out the window that faced the operating room, his heart pounding fiercely in his chest. Hours later, Edward was finally taken to Scarlett's room. He found her lying in bed, connected to several machines that monitored her vital signs. Her face was pale, her breathing soft but steady. Edward approached slowly, taking her hand gently, feeling the fragility of her fingers between his. "I'm here, love," he whispered, his voice breaking with emotion. "I'm here, and our baby is okay. Santiago is okay." Scarlett didn't respond, but her eyes moved slightly beneath her closed eyelids, as if she was struggling to wake up, to return to him. Edward felt tears welling in his eyes. He had never felt such fear in his life. He didn't know how he would face the world without her strength, her light, her love, but he also knew he had to be strong for her, for Santiago. The following days were a mix of hope and fear. Scarlett remained tied in the intensive care unit while the doctors did everything possible to stabilize her condition. Edward spent every free moment between the neonatal intensive care unit, where Santiago was being monitored, and Scarlett's room, waiting patiently, praying silently for her recovery. Santiago, though small and fragile, seemed to be doing well. The doctors said he was a fighter, that he had unexpected strength for such a premature baby. Edward watched him through the incubator, feeling a mix of wonder and love he had never known. This tiny being, so vulnerable yet so strong, had already changed his life in a way he had never imagined. One day, while he was next to Santiago's incubator, a nurse approached. "Mr. Garcia, Scarlett is awake," she said, smiling gently. Edward felt his heart race. Without saying a word, he followed the nurse back to Scarlett's room. When he entered, he saw Scarlett with her eyes open, looking at the ceiling, her eyes filled with tears. He quickly approached, taking her hand. "Scarlett, you're awake," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of relief and emotion. Scarlett looked at him, her lips trembling. "The baby?" she asked in a weak voice, her worry evident in her eyes. Edward smiled, leaning down to gently kiss her forehead. "Santiago is okay, love. He's in the neonatal intensive care unit, but he's fine. He's strong, like his mother." Scarlett closed her eyes for a moment, letting the tears flow down her cheeks. They had gone through so much, fought against so many adversities, and now, finally, they had their child. "I want to see him," she said in a hoarse voice. "I want to see our son." Edward nodded, feeling an overwhelming wave of emotion. "As soon as you can, I promise." Days passed, and Scarlett began to slowly recover. The doctors monitored her closely, ensuring there were no further complications. Despite her weakness, Scarlett's determination was evident. Every day, she did everything she could to improve, to be stronger, so she could hold Santiago in her arms. Finally, the day arrived. Edward pushed Scarlett's wheelchair to the neonatal intensive care unit. When they entered, the soft sound of machines and the gentle hum of life in the ward enveloped them. Scarlett looked around until her eyes found the small incubator where Santiago lay. Edward helped her rise from the wheelchair, and carefully, they approached the incubator. There, wrapped in small blankets, was their son. His tiny eyes were closed, but his chest rose and fell with a steady rhythm. Scarlett felt an indescribable wave of love wash over her. "He's perfect," she whispered, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. "He's our miracle." Edward smiled, his own eyes filling with tears as he looked at their son, so small and yet so strong. Yes, he is, he said with a trembling voice. And you are the greatest miracle of all, Scarlett. Scarlett extended a trembling hand, gently caressing Santiago's cheek through the glass. She felt the immediate connection, the bond she had dreamed of for so long. In that moment, all the struggles, all the pain, all the doubts faded away. She had her son, she had Edward, and she had a newfound faith in life that she had never known before. As Santiago breathed softly in the incubator, Scarlett and Edward embraced, knowing this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with challenges but also with renewed hope. They had learned to accept the whims of destiny, to find strength in the darkest moments, and to believe in miracles no matter how improbable they might seem. And for the first time in a long while, they felt that everything would be all right, because they had the most important thing of all, the unbreakable love of a family. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, filling the room with a warm, soft light. Scarlett awoke to the gentle babbling of Santiago in his crib, which was placed next to her bed. She looked around, feeling a peace that was new to her, a sense of fulfillment that she had never experienced before. At 60 years old, she had thought her days of discovery were over, but motherhood had taught her otherwise. She leaned over the crib and smiled at the bright eyes of Santiago looking up at her. His little face lit up by a smile of pure joy, his eyes so full of life and curiosity, were a constant reminder of the miracle that had come into their lives. Gently, she lifted him from the crib and held him against her chest, feeling his warmth, his small heart beating in sync with hers. Edward entered the room, his face lit up by a calm smile. He approached Scarlett and wrapped his arms around her, gently kissing Santiago's head. "Good morning, my love," he said softly, so as not to startle the baby. "How are you?" Scarlett looked at him, her eyes filled with quiet joy. "I'm good," she replied, her voice soft yet firm. "I'm more than good. I'm grateful." Edward nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. They had been through so much to arrive at this point, countless doubts and fears, but now, with Santiago in their arms, everything seemed to fall into place in a way they had never imagined. Weeks turned into months, and the little family settled into a new routine. Santiago grew quickly, his laughter filling the house with a joy they hadn't experienced in a long time. Edward found a new depth in his writing, inspired by his son and the unexpected journey that had transformed their lives. His latest book, Deep Roots, explored the connection between the past and the present, between dreams and the realities that shaped their lives. But it was Scarlett who found a new voice, one she had never known she had. As she spent sleepless nights caring for Santiago, she began to write about her experience, about the ups and downs of pregnancy, the fears and hopes, the internal struggles, and unexpected victories. She discovered she had much to say, not just for herself but for other women who felt trapped between dreams and societal expectations. The result was Miracle at 60. The book was an open letter to all women who had dreamed of motherhood, who had faced impossible challenges, who had felt the pressure of a society dictating what was possible and what was not. Scarlett wrote with raw honesty, not hiding the moments of despair but also celebrating every small triumph, every moment of connection and love she had shared with Santiago and Edward. When the book was published, it immediately resonated with readers around the world. Sales skyrocketed, and soon Miracle at 60 became a bestseller. Scarlett received letters from women of all ages, from different countries, thanking her for sharing her story, for being a beacon of hope and courage in a world that often seemed dark and discouraging. One afternoon, as she sat in her study, surrounded by letters and emails from women touched by her story, Scarlett felt a deep gratitude, not just for having the chance to be a mother but also for having found her own voice in the process. Edward entered the room, watching her with a smile. "Are you reading the letters again?" he asked, his tone light. Scarlett nodded, a smile appearing on her face. "It's incredible how our story